I was born with blocked ovaries, and my husband took the initiative to suggest doing IVF.I accidentally discovered that my husband was going to replace the egg with that of his first love. I pretended not to know and arranged for someone to switch the egg back. I also swapped my husband's sperm with that of my first love. I don't want the genes of an irresponsible man. 24 years later, I gave 10% of the company's shares to my newly graduated son. Luna, who was placed outside by my father, came home and looked at me proudly. The child you worked hard to raise is mine. Ian, my dear son. As soon as my son and I got home, we heard Luna crying and wailing. Relatives who usually don't associate with me also gradually arrived, their eyes sizing me up and Luna. I sneered inwardly, knowing that these people were all deliberately brought by Luna. I looked coldly at Ethan, who was standing by Luna's side. Is there something important today? Why did you bring so many people over? Ian glanced coldly at the feigning fragile Luna, then cast his icy gaze toward Ethan. Under my guidance, he had long known that his father had a mistress kept outside, but he never expected that this mistress would be brought home. Before Ethan could speak, Luna ran to her son with tears streaming down her face. Ian, Mom has finally seen you. Let Mom take a good look at you. Ian hurriedly stepped back, his tone icy. My mom is called Sophia. Don't randomly claim a son. The way he looked at Luna was as if he was looking at a lunatic. I slightly raised the corner of my mouth in satisfaction. Truly my son. Luna staggered and fell to the ground. Ethan held him tenderly, full of concern. Ian, you are so immature. She is your smack. I raised my hand and slapped both of them across the face. A mistress who has to hide in the shadows and yet dares to spout nonsense here. My tone was icy, my eyes full of disdain and disgust for Luna. Ethan suddenly stood up, abandoning his usual gentleness, and raised his hand to hit me. Ian grabbed his wrist and looked at him with disdain. What right do you have to hit my mom? Seeing Ethan trying to struggle, Ian tightened his grip and pushed hard, causing Ethan to fall heavily onto Luna. Ethan's eyes widened in shock, and he raised his foot to kick Ian, but Luna stopped him. Ethan, this is our son. Don't hurt him. Ethan clenched his anger, his chest heaving violently, glaring fiercely at Ian. If it weren't for your own mother stopping me, I would have beaten you up. Just graduated from college, and you dare to hit your old man. It must be Sophia who spoiled you. His eyes were filled with hatred as he looked at me, as if he wanted to tear me apart alive. Ian stood in front of me. Only powerless men blame women. If you have the guts, hit me directly. My son showed no fear facing Ethan. His aura was just like mine. All right, everyone stop making a fuss. My great-uncle, who had just returned from the nursing home, issued a stern reprimand. He was the elder in the family, and as soon as he spoke, everyone immediately turned to look at him. He looked at Luna and Ethan, a hint of scrutiny in his eyes. You two made a big show of calling us over today. What exactly is the matter? Ethan and Luna exchanged a glance, and Ethan cleared his throat lightly. Today, I have an important announcement to make. He said this while looking at me and my son, taking a deep breath, deliberately acting as if he wanted to say something but held back. I looked at his whole performance with a cold expression, filled with disdain in my heart. Ian is not Sophia's son. This sentence was like throwing a huge stone into a calm and still lake. The crowd erupted in a commotion, each person gasping sharply. Ian shuddered, his eyes filled with disbelief as he looked at me. I gently patted his shoulder, signaling him not to rush. The relatives around were like a boiling pot, their expressions revealing gossip and greed. A sly glint flashed in Ethan's eyes, quickly replaced by sadness. When doing the IVF, the doctor said Sophia's eggs were very likely to fail. To avoid hurting her, I contacted Luna and swapped the eggs. I listened to his words, sneering inwardly. This irresponsible man wanted to defy the heavens, and yet put on a facade of doing it for my own good. Ethan glanced at me out of the corner of his eye, expecting me to lose my mind. But I remained calm and composed, leisurely savoring my tea. He cleared his throat lightly and continued, "The reason I gathered everyone here today is to clarify something." He looked at Luna. Ian's biological mother is not Sophia, but Luna. The relatives were shocked, then began to whisper among themselves. So there are things like this after all, but there's nothing that can be done since Sophia's eggs can't be used. Since Ian isn't Sophia's child, he definitely has to acknowledge his biological mother. Yeah, what's the use of a hen that can't lay eggs? If you ask me, Sophia's position should be given up. The family business shouldn't be controlled by a woman. I scanned the people speaking. Ethan sure knows how to find people. All of them were parasites cleared out from the company. They had long been dissatisfied with me, eager for Luna to compete with me and completely kick me out of the company. That way, they could use the opportunity to return to the company and make more money. Ian looked at the relatives whose faces clearly said, "Drive Sophia out of the company," his expression growing darker. I looked at Ethan with a sneer. Ian is the child I carried for 10 months and gave birth to. He is my child. He would never recognize anyone else as his mother. My voice was firm and resolute, leaving no room for argument. Tears instantly slid down Luna's face, her expression filled with the sorrow of having her child taken away by me. "Sister, Ian is my child. You should stop deceiving yourself." "I am his mother. What I said is true. Ian is indeed my biological son." Luna and Ethan really think I know nothing. 25 years ago, before we got married, I confessed that my ovaries were blocked and I couldn't conceive naturally. Ethan suggested we could try in vitro fertilization. I agreed, but then I caught him with Luna. That's when I realized he had been with Luna all along. No wonder he never got angry when I made excuses to keep him from touching me. There was still joy in my eyes, realizing that there had always been a beauty in my arms, and I would remain faithful to Luna. The two of them planned to swap my eggs with Luna's. I took precautions in advance. After they bribed the nurse to make the swap, I had the doctor replace it with another batch I had prepared earlier. I also had the doctor change the genetic father of my son. I replaced Ethan's sperm with that of my childhood friend. Both Ethan and I were looking forward to the embryo successfully developing, and Ethan was very happy that day. He thought it was his and Luna's child, and he was attentive to me when I was pregnant. He was even more afraid than I was that the child might accidentally be lost. After the child was born, he excitedly shared the news with his parents-in-law who were far away in Gyeongchang. For a full 24 years, I watched him treat Ian sincerely, dreaming with a smile on his face. He thought he had tricked me, but unexpectedly, he ended up being a father to someone else's child for 24 years. Although Ian was born to you, the egg was not yours at all. Ethan couldn't help but speak up, interrupting my memories. He said sarcastically, "Ian's biological mother is Luna. Are you really going to fight her for the child?" I looked at Ethan with contempt, my tone cold. "I think there's something wrong with your brain, talking nonsense like this." Ethan's face darkened with anger as he clenched his rage and argued with me. "We can do a paternity test. Ian and you are definitely not mother and son. I still want a divorce from you. Back then, you forced me to marry you with surgery fees. I've been working like a beast of burden for you all these years, and I've had enough." When he proposed a divorce, Yu Guang was still looking at Luna. Since he cheated, he had been planning the divorce, scheming with Luna to ruin me. But I do not approve of him working like a beast of burden at all. He was a penniless college student who married into the family, instantly doubling his net worth and living a life of extravagance. And it was him who pursued me back then, begging me to pay for his father's surgery. I gave him status and money, yet he felt humiliated by me. Truly disgusting. I know his cunning plan, to divorce me, marry Luna, and use Ian, this son, to take control of the family. But he miscalculated. I remained calm, my tone indifferent. "Fine, let's get a divorce. But forget about the paternity test. I'm sure Ian is my biological son." Ian stood firmly by my side. "Mom, I believe you." Just by looking at our appearances, you can tell I'm your son." Ethan and Luna's faces turned pale, and Ethan hurriedly went to pull Ian. "Son, don't you even believe what your dad says?" Ian turned sideways to avoid his hand and stood behind me, his attitude obvious. "Brother." Just then, a girl walked in through the door. She rushed over to Ian, her face full of joy. "Brother, I am Raina." Everyone present was stunned. How could there suddenly be a sister out of nowhere? The gazes of the crowd shifted between Ethan and me, full of the meaning of watching a play. I was not surprised in the slightest. Raina, the daughter of Ethan and Luna. When Ian was 3 years old, Ethan and Luna secretly had another child. Bang! My dad, who had been silent all along, suddenly slammed the table. "Ethan, what on earth is going on?" My dad had long seen through the shady dealings between Ethan and Luna. Ethan's affair was embarrassing enough, but to find out there was a child too. My dad clutched his chest in anger. "Explain yourself clearly." The living room instantly fell silent. Raina's eyes instantly turned red as she looked at Ian. "I have always known that you are my real older brother." Her voice was choked with emotion, and she glanced at me from time to time, revealing fear as if she was afraid I would devour her. "Mom often talks about you. She says you are very handsome and especially good at studying." Luna also choked up, her eyes filled with tears as she looked at Ian. "Ian, Mom has missed you so much all these years, thinking of you every moment." She spoke as tears flowed down, as if she were the one who had been betrayed. Raina misses you a lot too. I often take her to school to see you." Raina hurriedly nodded. "Brother, I worked very hard to get into the same university as you." She opened her phone, which was full of photos of Ian, including pictures of him giving a speech in the Grand Hall. There were also graduation photos taken with her roommates, capturing their lives from freshman to senior year. Ian took a step back in disgust, saying that Raina secretly taking photos was no different from being a pervert. She had been secretly watching him all along. Ethan was not idle either. He walked slowly towards my dad. "Dad, I have no choice. Sophia is indeed your only daughter, but she can't have children. Someone in our family has to carry on the lineage. I'm doing this to ensure the family line continues." I understood his intentions perfectly. My father's greatest wish was to have a grandson who could inherit the family business. After Ian was born, my dad was so happy that he gave Ethan 3% of the shares and even promoted him to the position of general manager. Over the years, my dad has almost devoted all his resources to nurturing Ian. As long as the old man recognizes Ian as his grandson and sees Ian as the future heir of the family, even if Ethan, the son-in-law who married into the family, cheats, my father will not drive him away. That's why he brought Luna home without any hesitation. Not only did he want to bring Luna into the house, but he even wanted to bring back his illegitimate daughter, betting that my dad wouldn't be able to bear losing Ian, this outstanding grandson. My dad was also a bit hesitant at this moment, looking at Ian and then at me, hesitating repeatedly but still unable to speak. I smiled and broke the silence in the room. "Since you want to leave an heir for the family, what's the deal with this daughter? Is she a bonus gift?" This is the first time I've heard someone describe cheating in such a fresh and refined way, but in the end, it's still about not being able to control the lower half. I turned my head to look at Ian, a hint of meaning in my eyes, and he immediately understood. Even if Ian isn't my biological son, I still love him. He is Sophia's only son. My money, real estate, including 25% of the family shares, I will give all to him. I smiled slightly at the corner of my mouth, looking at Ian with eyes full of love and expectation. "Ian, Mom is giving everything to you. Will you come with me? Or will you go with the dad who married in and the mom who falsely claims to be your mother?" Ian immediately realized and put his arm around my shoulder. "Mom, of course I'll go with you. They all have other children, so I definitely won't get a penny." No wonder he's the child I carefully raised. Not only did he point out their affair, but he also subtly revealed their true intentions. Ethan and Luna heard that I was giving all the property to Ian. The two exchanged a glance, unable to suppress the smiles tugging at their lips, filled with greed and secret delight. Ethan had long coveted the wealth in my hands. I have quite a lot of money. Not to mention the 25% stake I hold, whose annual returns could be squandered for generations. The greed in their eyes was unabashed as they leaned in, whispering to each other. When Grandpa passed away back then, to help Sophia firmly secure the CEO position, he gave all his shares to her. Her dad only had 10%, and back then he gave you 3%. Luna said, shooting me a sharp glance from the corner of her eye. She lowered her voice. When Sophia gives the shares to Ian, and Ian inherits Grandpa's shares, that will be 35% of the shares. This way, I will be the largest shareholder, making her lose everything and kick her out of the family. Ethan kept nodding, feeling that what was said was very true. Ethan looked at Ian with a face full of kindness. Ian, Raina is a girl and will get married in the future. Dad won't leave the property to her. He looked at Luna, but you have to do a paternity test with Luna. If it's confirmed that she is your mother, you have to acknowledge her and leave Sophia. Ian frowned, and I nodded slightly to signal him to agree. All right, but you have to transfer all the assets to my name first. He agreed, but also took the opportunity to set some conditions. I was overjoyed. My son truly understands my thoughts. Money only truly belongs to you once it's in your hands. The relatives watching the commotion instantly became excited. Ethan and Luna, two pig brains, how could they not think of it? Each one seemed to see a bright future. Ethan is just a figurehead in the company with no management ability, and Luna has never managed a company either. If the family belongs to these two, wouldn't they just be easily played by this old fox? Ian is right. I will contact a lawyer right now. My father looked at me with a conflicted expression. Although he favored sons over daughters, he regretted not having a son to inherit the family business. But he also knew that with the economic turmoil over the years, if it weren't for me, the family would have gone bankrupt long ago. He hesitated before speaking. Sophia, are you really going to gift the property? I nodded. Dad, don't worry. Father sighed and slowly closed his mouth. After some busy work by relatives, Ethan and I transferred all our assets to Ian's name, leaving only $30,000 for living expenses. Watching Ian sign his name, Ethan and Luna's eyes both lit up. It was as if they could already see the scene of him flaunting his power within the family. I looked at the son who had become the largest shareholder and smiled slightly. There was just one person left. I needed to quickly pry the assets from Luna's hands as well. Luna, don't you miss Ian every year and love him very much? I watched Luna's expression change suddenly, pretending not to see, and continued. Over the years, I've spent more than $10 million raising your son. I don't want you to pay me back. I love Ian the most. Just give the money to Ian. Ian immediately said, Sophia, you keep saying you love me. Then you'll provide me with security just like Dad does, right? My dad has supported you for so many years, secretly slipping you a few million, hasn't he? I don't think you'd mind giving some to me, your biological son, would you? Or is it just like my mom said, that you didn't come back to acknowledge me, but for the family fortune? Luna's expression stiffened, caught in a dilemma. She felt reluctant to take out the money, but if she didn't, Ian would suspect her intentions were impure. After thinking that she would get more in the future, she gritted her teeth and handed a card to Ian. Ian, Mom's money is your money. How could I be unwilling to give it to you? Ian immediately looked at the lawyer. Please have lawyer Lee draft the contract. Luna clenched her hands tightly, her knuckles turning white from the strain. The pain in my heart was unbearable, like flesh being cut away, but on the surface, I could only pretend to be happy. That twisted face was simply unbearable to look at. Ethan personally contacted the doctor for the identification, watching every step carefully, afraid I might manipulate things behind the scenes. After the doctor took blood samples from me, Ian and Luna, I slightly looked up and said to Ethan and him, "Let's do the test together." Ethan sneered, "I am Ian's biological father. There's no need for a test." I raised an eyebrow. "What? Are you scared?" Ian didn't know why I made this request, but she also went along with what I said to persuade Ethan. Ian was Ethan's cash cow, so he readily agreed. Leaving the hospital, Raina smiled and walked toward Ian. "Brother." She wanted to hug Ian, but Ian dodged her, his tone cold. "Stay away from me." Raina was shouted at, and instantly her eyes reddened, tears of grievance welling up in them. "This way, it's exactly the same as that green tea, Luna." Luna hurriedly coaxed, "Ian, you two are biological siblings. You should be nicer to your sister." Ian patted the corner of his clothes that Luna had touched, as if it had been stained with something dirty. "Our relationship hasn't been confirmed yet. She's just a stranger." I looked calm and said lightly, "Ethan, let's get a divorce right now. From now on, you have no connection with the family." Luna didn't expect that I loved Ethan so much, yet I divorced so decisively. Ethan also looked surprised, a flash of disdain in his eyes. "I'd be more than happy to divorce you." I know what he's thinking. Without me, he still has Luna and Ian. Now that I no longer have shares in the family, I have no value to be used. Now neither of us has any property, we don't take advantage of each other, and we directly got the divorce certificate. Luna was originally very happy, but when she saw Ian calling me Mom over and over, she felt dissatisfied. Taking advantage of Ian going to buy something, she rushed in front of me to show off. "Sophia, let me tell you a secret. Ethan never loved you. He only loves me. On your wedding day, he said his mother was sick, but in reality, he went to see me. And Dad, he loved me the most. Over the years, we often ate together." Raina was no longer fragile. She glared at me and said, "Now all the family shares belong to my brother. He is the future president of the family business. Wait until the test results come out, then you can wait to be kicked out." I have no interest in the performance of these two clowns. I didn't even bother to spare them a glance, turning around directly to leave. Luna, seeing my indifference, glared at me darkly. "You have managed the family as the sole heir. Now it's time to hand it over to Ethan and me." I stared into her eyes, curling a cold smile. "Leaving it to you, Ian really is just a tool for you." Luna linked her arm with Ethan's, her face beaming with a victorious smile. "You just realized it, too late. Now all the shares are under Ian's name. Once the paternity test results come out, Ethan and I will be the ones in control of the family." I suppressed my smile. "I will wait and see if you have the ability to control the family." They planned very well. They thought they had me completely fooled. But they didn't know that I was the one truly in control of the whole situation, quietly watching their ridiculous performance. After the share transfer agreement was signed, Ian became the largest shareholder, and I held a celebration banquet for him. Halfway through the banquet, noisy voices came from the door, and I turned to see Raina. Her eyes were full of arrogance and pride as she shouted loudly, "Ian is my biological brother. I am the family's heiress. Let me in immediately." The staff hesitated, afraid to stop her. I stepped out and shouted sternly, "Throw her out." The bodyguard saw me and immediately stepped forward to grab Raina. Raina struggled desperately, making a big scene. "My brother is the family CEO, you lowly scum. Let go of me." She looked at me fiercely. "Sophia, you are not my brother's biological mother. You've lost all your shares. What right do you have to attend the banquet and act so arrogantly?" She was shouting and even used her sharp nails to scratch the security guard. Just as I was about to lose it, Ian came out from inside. "Who is causing trouble here?" Raina instantly burst into tears. "Brother, save me." She changed her expression faster than flipping a page, pointed at me with grievance, and said in a trembling voice, "This bitch won't let me in." Ian's expression grew even darker. "Shut up. If you dare insult my mom, I'll beat you to death." You're not on the guest list. You have no right to come in. Also, I'm not your brother. Don't randomly claim relatives. Ian, how can you not acknowledge your little sister? Luna rushed over wearing a gown. Taking advantage of the banquet, you should introduce us to others and quickly get us inside. Ian sneered. Someone, throw these two lunatics out. Seeing this, Luna immediately started crying and shouting. I am Ian's biological mother. The family belongs to me. Let go of me. Seeing a guest looking this way, my gaze grew even more fierce. The family's disgrace must not be spread outside. I said sternly, throw the shrew out. The bodyguards immediately stepped forward, dragging the two outside. Luna spat harsh words, Sophia, you bitch. When the test results come out tomorrow, I want you to kneel down and kowtow to me. I looked at her hysterical shouting, my smile mocking. I'm also looking forward to the results. Upon receiving the news that the test results were out, Luna was already shouting to wake people up early at the villa. She was dressed flamboyantly, like a peacock in full plumage, not hiding from me at all, exchanging glances with Ethan. I glanced at her, hoping to see that she could still smile so happily after the results. Besides my father, Luna also invited relatives to the hospital to witness the results. I saw through her little scheme. She wanted more people to see me as a joke. Then let her be. Let's see who is the one being ridiculed. Before confirming the result, I looked at Ethan with a smile. This is the hospital and doctor you chose yourself. You have no objections to the result, right? Ethan said coldly, of course, no objections. I held back my laughter. If he was so sure, then that was good. Before the doctor came over, Luna smiled and held Ethan's hand. Once the results are out, the four of us will be happily together. After saying that, she even glanced at me proudly, her eyes full of boasting and provocation. I turned my head and looked at Ian. Ian kept his head down looking at the documents, not looking at Luna at all. Luna put on a blank performance, but quickly switched to a smiling face. Ian, Mom is best at cooking. Tell Mom what you like to eat. She also took out an expensive watch from her bag. This is a gift to acknowledge our kinship. Ian didn't even look at it, his hands continuing to tap on the notebook. Luna's hand froze in place. Ethan stepped forward. Ian, your mom took a long time picking this out. Just accept it. Ian looked at Ethan coldly. Why should I accept it? My mom is Sophia, not her. I can tell who truly cares for me, who truly loves and takes care of me. My eyes welled up with tears. My son will always protect me. Just then, the doctor came over holding the identification report. Ethan, Luna, and Raina instantly straightened their backs and stared intently at the identification report. It seemed that if I could see through that layer of paper, wealth and glory would be right before my eyes. Luna spoke triumphantly in my ear. You obstructed my relationship with Ethan back then, and now it's your turn to be kicked out. I suppressed the urge to burst out laughing. The doctor opened the file and Luna, unable to continue showing off, stared intently at the report. In their eyes, it was their path to the pinnacle of power. Ethan struggled to suppress the smile at the corner of his mouth, wanting to stand up and cheer in the next moment. Tears of excitement streamed down Luna's face. Ian, soon you will know that I am your real mother. And that dumbest Raina actually made a request to Ian. Brother, I am your biological sister, and the family owns an entertainment company. You have to promote me as a big star. Once I become famous, I will be the family's spokesperson, and the story can reach even greater heights. She had the look of Ian should be like this on her face. I looked coldly at the foolishness of the three. I hope that after seeing the results, they can still laugh. The doctor opened the results. According to the identification comparison, Luna and Ian. He looked up at Luna, and seeing his pause, Luna urged anxiously, hurry up and announce it. The other family members were also eagerly awaiting the result, impatient to get their share from Luna in the future. There is no parent-child relationship between the two. As the words fell, Ethan suddenly stood up and snatched the appraisal report from the doctor's hand. This must be a mistake. Luna and Ian are definitely mother and son. Luna's legs went weak, almost causing her to fall. She looked at Ethan. Ethan, you didn't switch. Raina grabbed the appraisal report of Ian and me. This. The doctor said, Ian and Miss Sophia have a mother-son relationship. Ethan stood frozen in place. Impossible. I saw the confusion in my father's and Ian's eyes. I stood up and looked at everyone. Back then, when you planned to swap the eggs, I caught you. I arranged to have the eggs swapped back. I watched Ethan's face grow paler and paler, feeling increasingly pleased. My family doesn't need the inferior genes of an irresponsible man, so I replaced it with the sperm of my childhood friend. This news exploded over everyone like a bolt from the blue. My dad suddenly looked up at me, his face full of disbelief. I took the last report from the doctor's hand and threw it in Ethan's pale face. Ian is not your child. Sophia. Ethan rushed up angrily, about to hit me, but Ian kicked him away. He clutched his stomach, rolling on the ground. You illegitimate child, how dare you hit me? I sneered aloud. Ethan, have you forgotten that you married into the family? The child I give birth to, no matter who the father is rightfully a legitimate child of the family. Luna suddenly rushed in front of my dad. Old man, Ian is just a bastard who knows where his real father is from. The bloodline is unclear and impure. What if he ruins the family? He cannot inherit the family. My dad recovered from the shock. But he didn't even look at Luna and Raina. His gaze toward me was full of complexity. Sophia, are you telling the truth? I nodded slightly. It's true. Luna held my dad's hand. Old man, Sophia gave birth to a child with an unknown father. It's truly a disgrace to the family. Ethan also stepped forward to chime in. Dad, maybe that man is trying to take over the family. My dad shook them off. Shut up. Do you know who the person Sophia is talking about is? Luna cried out, a shady person who cares who he is. But this time, father didn't soothe her. It's Julian. What? The Julian family is a top-tier aristocratic family. If we establish ties with the Julian family, our clan will surely reach a new level. Sophia. A deep, resonant voice came through. Bodyguards surrounded a stern-looking, imposing old gentleman as he walked in. I stood up and approached. Uncle Julian. My dad quickly stood up when he saw Uncle Julian. Brother Julian, what brings you here? Uncle Julian glanced at Luna. I heard someone was bullying Sophia, so I came to check. My dad helped to smooth things over. Brother Julian, you misunderstood. Sophia is the eldest lady of the family, and her son is the new president of the family business. No one can bully her. I felt no ripple in my heart upon hearing this. I know my father's personality very well. Although he has feelings for me, his strong preference for sons over daughters means he has never regarded me as a suitable heir. Even though it was I who helped the family out of difficulties, and I who brought the family to its current heights. He stubbornly believes that the family business should be inherited by a man. And now, the only reason he is righteously standing up for me is because of the Julian family. With the power of the Julian family, if the clan can rely on this strong backing, they will surely be able to take a solid step forward and become a truly prestigious family. So at this moment, in my father's eyes, I am no longer just a simple woman. Upon hearing this, Luna roared like a lit powder keg. How can this be? It shouldn't be like this. My dad looked at Luna warningly. Shut up. He lowered his voice. You can't afford to offend the Julian family. I haven't settled accounts with you for the mess you and Ethan made. 'Cause more trouble and get out of the family. Luna lost everything she had and pointed at me with resentment. She said it was Julian's family seed, so it is. She looked at Uncle Julian. Boss Julian, she's talking nonsense. Don't be fooled. I looked at her mockingly, calmly took out the appraisal report from my bag. This is the paternity test report of Ian and Julian. I held the report up for everyone to see. The test was done by Julian's family agency. Ian is the bloodline of Julian's family and clan, not the bastard Luna spoke of. Each relative was a clever one, immediately turning against me. The Julian family is not someone we can afford to offend. In the end, it was Ethan and Luna who schemed first, and Sophia was just retaliating. I support Ian inheriting the family. Ethan collapsed to the ground, his lips drained of color under the contemptuous gazes of everyone around. I looked at the bodyguard as Luna was dragged out and thrown away. When Ethan was being carried away by the bodyguards, he struggled fiercely, rolling and crawling until he reached me, then knelt down directly. Sophia, it was Luna who seduced me. She wanted to push you out, so she thought of the method of egg donation, but in my heart, I've always loved you. I also know that you love me. How about we remarry? But I have never loved you. My cold voice exploded in his ear. He widened his eyes. What are you saying? If you didn't love me, why would you agree to let me marry into your family? I looked at that bloated face and could no longer find any trace of that person. Ethan, I agreed to your pursuit because you look somewhat like Julian. I pointed at the relatives in the distance. I just took over the family, and the foundation is unstable. That group of old fossils wants to use my not getting married as an excuse to push me out. I can only marry you to help you keep them steady. You got money from me, but you are not satisfied. Now you leave empty-handed. This is your own doing. Ethan's face turned pale, and he stared at me in a daze, muttering to himself. Impossible, impossible. His body trembled slightly, as if trapped in endless despair and confusion. I didn't pay attention to him and went with Uncle Julian to visit Julian at Julian's hospital. Uncle, I have already contacted a master of traditional Chinese medicine. He previously used acupuncture combined with Western medicine to awaken a patient in a vegetative state. Uncle Julian's eyes lit up, and his body unconsciously straightened slightly, really. I nodded firmly, smiling as I looked at him. He has seen Julian's information, and he said there is a 50% chance of awakening. The doctor will come tomorrow. Uncle Julian's eyes were red, and his hands were trembling. Good. That's great. Julian can finally wake up. 3 days later, Luna and Reina's belongings were thrown out by the servants. Luna and Reina wandered outside the family villa for a long time, eventually leaving the family in a daze. She had finally made it to the family, but unexpectedly was kicked out so quickly. She could only slink back to her own home, but then saw Ethan. What are you doing here? Get out. This is my home. Luna threw Ethan's things outside. Ethan didn't expect Luna to turn her back on him. I'm your man. Why can't I live here? Luna raised her hand and slapped him in the face. Ugh, a freeloader, get lost. If you hadn't pissed off Sophia, how would I have been kicked out of the family? Ethan felt a burning pain on his face and suddenly threw Luna away. It was you who came up with the idea of egg donation in the first place. If you hadn't targeted Sophia, would we have lost our wealth and glory? Luna staggered backward from the blow, eyes wide open, staring fixedly at Ethan. Weren't you also fully on board back then, with both hands and feet? She lunged forward and tore at Ethan. How can you, a grown man, have the nerve to blame me? Ethan held her firmly. Enough? What's the use of saying this? We have nothing left now. Reina hasn't graduated yet. How will the tuition be paid? Luna looked at Reina, who was crying nonstop. What should we do then? We can't possibly buy the house. I only have one house left. If I buy it, I'll have to rent for the rest of my life. Ethan leaned against the door in despair, finding it easy to go from frugality to luxury, but hard to go from luxury back to frugality. He suddenly slapped his thigh. Let's go find Ian. I've given him all my money. We'll go get it back from him. Ethan pulled Luna to Ian's villa. Ian was about to leave when he ran into the two of them. Why are you here again? Luna grabbed Ian. Give us back the money and the shares. Ian shook off Luna. Why give it to you? He got into the car, ready to leave, but Ethan fearlessly stood in front of the vehicle. That $6 million is all my money. Ian glanced at him, his eyes filled with coldness. Your money? Have you ever earned a single cent? That's money my mom earned. And we have already signed the gift contract. This money is all mine. Ian signaled the driver to start the car. Ethan was almost run over and angrily cursed, "Beast." Luna watched the car drive away, her body swayed, and she fell straight to the ground. Ethan was so frightened that he stood frozen in place. Ian saw the scene through the rearview mirror and called emergency services. Then he closed his eyes to rest, as if Ethan and Luna had never appeared. Soon, Luna and Ethan had spent all their money. Luna couldn't possibly sell the house to support Ethan. Raina was about to start school, and Luna forced Ethan to go out and work. If you can't make money, then don't come back. Upon hearing the news, I immediately called a friend and asked him to arrange a job for Ethan. Ian and I sat on the third floor of the bar, watching Ethan bartend and mix drinks. Ian frowned. "Mom, this is way too lenient on him." I put down my wine glass and looked at him deeply. The real show is yet to come. Before long, a sturdy man came and holding Luna in his arms. Luna pressed her whole body against the man, behaving intimately. Sitting at the bar ordering a drink, Ethan spotted the two at once and rushed over. "Luna, what are you doing here?" Luna ignored him completely and ordered drinks with the man on her own. Ethan, furious beyond control, grabbed Luna. "Let's go home." Luna shook him off. "Who are you to stop me from drinking here?" A man stood in front of Luna, glaring coldly at Ethan. Ethan's face flushed red. "What exactly is your relationship?" Luna sneered and kissed that man in front of Ethan. "Now you know what our relationship is. Get lost. Don't ruin my date." Ethan seemed not to recognize Luna, his hand trembling as he pointed at her. "You actually cheated." Luna brushed his hand away. "I'm telling you, I was with him before I was with you. Come to think of it, you're actually the other man's mistress. If it weren't for using you to bring down Sophia, I wouldn't look down on you as an irresponsible man." She looked at Ethan with disdain, then suddenly smiled. "By the way, Raina is not your child. She is mine and his." Ethan's forehead veins bulged as he glared fiercely at Luna. "You're lying." Raina is my child." The man beside him looked at Ethan with disdain. "Thank you for taking care of my daughter for 20 years, haha." Ethan felt abandoned by the world at this moment, the gazes of the people around him piercing him like knives. The woman he had always loved had been using him all along. The daughter he cherished was another man's child. He lost everything only to be met with betrayal. He grabbed the glass bottle on the table and smashed it fiercely against Luna's head. "Bitch." Blood splattered onto his body and face, his eyes filled with murderous intent. The shattered glass bottle stabbed into Luna again and again. "You ruined me. I could have enjoyed wealth and glory, but it's all your fault." Luna collapsed to the ground, her face full of terror and pain. Covered in blood, she reached out helplessly for help. Save me." Bang! The wine glass in Ian's hand shattered on the ground. He lowered his head, refusing to look at the tragic scene below. I stood above, watching the farce unfolding below. The police and ambulance arrived simultaneously, and Luna was pulled into the ambulance. Ethan, the murderer, was taken away by the police. Ian suppressed the fear in his heart. "Mom, is this the big show tonight?" I patted his shoulder. "Ian, you are the future successor of both our family and the Julian family. One must never show mercy to enemies." Ian's eyes were still filled with confusion. "But they already have nothing left, so why still?" "Because Ethan is poisoning you slowly." I coldly watched the glaring blood downstairs. "What they want is not just the family fortune, but after using you, they want you to die quietly without a sound." Ian suddenly fell ill at the age of 19. After investigation, I discovered that Ethan instructed the servant to administer a slow-acting poison. I just realized that what they want is not the child, but his life. I wanted to throw him into prison immediately, but I discovered something else. I looked at Ian. Your biological father's car accident was not an accident. It was also caused by Ethan and Luna. At that time, Julian was going to confess to me, but Luna found out. She was afraid Ethan couldn't get close to me, so she hired a drunkard to try to run over your dad. Thinking about this matter made my body start to tremble. These things I only recently found out clearly. After Julian had a car accident, he broke up with me. Back then, I naively thought Julian didn't like me. Feeling abandoned, I decided to no longer pursue so-called love. Just then, Ethan actively pursued me, and with my family urging marriage, I simply rushed into it. Little did I expect that it was all a conspiracy between Ethan and Luna. He and Luna tried to kill my son and Julian's enemy, and I endured it for 7 years. Finally, they ended up killing each other. Luna's boyfriend is a bar singer. He often brings Luna along. I specifically asked a friend to arrange for Ethan to work here. As long as Luna comes over, they will definitely run into each other. Luna was too badly injured and died. Ethan intentionally injured someone and was sentenced to life imprisonment. This is what he deserves. And Reina's biological father didn't want to pay for her schooling, so she dropped out. I heard she was forced to make a living selling drinks in a bar. They tried to frame me, but ended up suffering the consequences themselves. Ms. Sophia, Mr. Julian has woken up. Ian and I had just arrived at the hospital when a nurse ran towards me. I was overjoyed, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst out of my throat, and I rushed towards the ward. As soon as I entered, I saw Julian sitting on the hospital bed, responding to the doctor's questions. Julian, you finally woke up. I was in tears, holding his hand tightly. He looked at me gently, softly wiping the tears from the corner of my eyes. Don't cry, your eyes will hurt. His gaze fell on Ian behind me. Who is he? Our son. I struggled to calm my excited heart and told him the whole story in detail. I told him about the test tube, and he was somewhat taken aback. But he quickly accepted it and smiled at Ian. What's your name? Ian stepped forward. Dad, my name is Ian. Mom said it means wishing you peace. Julian gently patted his hand. That's great. Your eyes are very much like your mother's. Dad is awake now. From now on, Dad will protect you all and absolutely won't let anyone bully you. A month later, with the blessings of family and friends, Julian and I got married. The family was completely entrusted to the son to manage. I accompanied Julian to fulfill the wishes he had in his youth. Watching the mountains and waters, holding your hand, growing old together.